has been, in my opinion, one of the stars of the season so far, because he's been putting in some incredible performances. The first one races were really nothing much to write him about, but in Australia is where things really picked up for him, and he made Q3 in qualifying and brought back a brilliant 7th place finish to give whatever you want to call them team their first points of the year. Okay, it was 9th he was on for before Russell crashed on the last lap and Alonso got penalised after the race, but 9th still would have been a great finish for him, as would have 8th, which is where he crossed the line, but he ended up with 7th because of penalties. He backed up that first points finish of the year with a second Q3 appearance and a second points finish in a row, starting and finishing P10 at the next race, which was his home race in Japan, and making a couple of brilliant overtakes in the process, by the way, and the team pulling off a brilliant pit stop to help him on his way to P10. China was a weekend to forget, but in Miami, he, after Hamilton was penalised, finished 8th for another point, and then went on to match Q3 again, and matched his best finish of the season so far with another 7th place. This time on track, unlike Australia, where he of course crossed the line in 8th and gained 7th later. But Miami was another weekend where Yuki proved that he was perhaps the quickest driver in the bottom half of the grid. Then Imola, he was amazing in qualifying. At one stage, he was being towards the top of the times before he eventually qualified in 7th place. His best qualifying position of the season thus far. And he used that and his experience of having done a lot of test days and filming days in Imola before the last few years to go on to finish the race in P10 for another points finish. And then in Monaco, he made it 3 Q3 appearances in a row and 3 points finishes in a row with his 8th place finish in both sessions. And this was the first time ever in Formula 1 that Yuki has had 3 straight points finishes. But look, my point here is the Japanese man has been doing amazing so far this year. Honestly, if you were to ask me who I'd put in my top 5 performers of the season so far, Yuki is in that top 5. And you'd think that his strong performances mean that he could be shoo-in for move up to Red Bull, right? Well, no, as it turns out. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure how much chance he had anyway, but Red Bull just announced that Checo will be staying with them on another 2-year deal for 2025 and 2026. Of course, I'm going to go back and record this because they announced it after I bloody recorded the video, but best choice? Well, yes and no. Yes, in that they're familiar with Checo and they cane him and what he can do, and they clearly rate him very highly considering they're keeping him again for another couple of years. And to be fair to Checo, then he on his day he can be pretty speedy. I try not to let recency bias get to me too much, and that's what I'm trying to do with Checo. Like I said, to be fair to him, he can be quite quick on his day, and they also probably just want to try have some stability looking into the new regulations. Also, perhaps giving him a 2-year instead of a 1-year, which is the extension I expected them to give him. It's rare event that they do lose Max, which I still don't see that happening. Well, for 2025 anyway. For 2026, I think there's a possibility, but no, in that the mid-season slump that Checo had last year does seem to be rearing its ugly head again. And again, I don't want to get in on Checo too hard yet because it has just been 2 races so far. And again, I do try not let recency bias get to me too much. But I'm just saying, if this slump does continue and they lose the constructors from Checo being a bit mid, I feel like questions will be asked in regards to why they kept him, I think. To answer the question the title of this video poses, are Red Bull overlooking Yuki Tsunoda? I mean, kinda, yeah. As I said, I can see why Red Bull were keen to keep Checo, I can see why they re-signed him, but at the same time, Yuki's right there, and I feel like he could have been a really good option for them. But at the same time, it does feel they're overlooking Tsunoda a little bit. But this is where the good thing for Tsunoda comes in, is that he has other options outside the Red Bull camp, and according to Andrew Benson for the BBC, there is chances for the Japanese driver in several midfield teams, which is understandable why they will be interested in. But which teams though? Well, there's the obvious option for 2026 that he could follow Honda to Aston Martin if they either boot Stroll, or if Alonso says sod this and decides to leave early because he's getting fed up of the downward spiral they seem to be on. Or maybe he's hoping for 2026. I don't know. But maybe Stroll might finally get booted. Yeah, I know, higher chance of pigs flying, but whatever. Given the history / ties that Yuki has with Honda, I could see it happening still. Haas, I don't think so, because they're apparently interested in Ocon. Williams, I also don't think so, because they've been, there's been word of Bottas has been in the running for there. Carlos Sainz's name has been thrown into the hat. Kimi Antonelli's name keeps on getting mentioned, but I think he's more likely to go to Mercedes. I doubt he goes to Alpine, because that does not look like a good option, but if Pierre stays there, it might be nice to have a Pierre and Yuki reunion as teammates. But, or he could just stay with AlphaTauri for 2025, which that would be bad news for Liam Lawson, because according to Formula Uno, Ricciardo is looking set to keep his seat for 2025. But it wouldn't be all that bad for Tsunoda, because they are doing quite good, and that seat, if they can continue this trend in 2025, it would give him a good place to continue to prove what he can do and prove himself as, one of the best midfield runners on the grid right now, which I do think he really is. So, it might just be good for him to stay where he is next year and then look for options for 2026. I don't know, it just kind of feels like Tsunoda in the coming years should follow the example of his former teammate Pierre Gasly and leave the Red Bull family, because I think it could do his career good. Because let's be fair, a seat at Red Bull, I mean, the soonest it'll happen is 2026 if they lose Max, or 2027 if they don't, you can? And then there's also this, where apparently Horner said that, Yuki doesn't think Yuki's Red Bull material, which, ouch, that's gonna be hurtful for Yuki, but whatever. Beyond 2025, there could be chances in the future, yeah, but by then, who's to say Yuki won't have already signed elsewhere outside of the Red Bull program? But yeah, no, to me, it just kind of feels like Yuki Tsunoda is being overlooked by Red Bull. They have a lot of talent right now, which is a bit of a good problem for them to have. I just kind of feel like one talent they already have in Formula 1, they're kind of overlooking a little bit. When the junior program, the goal of it is to bring drivers up into Red Bull, and they're not doing that. What do you think, though? Where do you see Yuki Tsunoda going next year and in the coming years? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.